Welcome back. In this session, we'll look at study hypothesis and how to develop the same. Hypothesis is a logically conjured relationship between two or more variables expressed in form of testable statements. In our previous lecture, we mentioned about development of conceptual framework, and we said we looked at how to present in a schematic way the relationship between dependent, independent, and confounding variables. And we say that development of the theoretical framework will give a good basis for development of study hypothesis. Supposing we did a literature review, and in our synthesis, we found that if nurses are given adequate to provide post-abortion care, then sepsis is reduced. The above statement is testable, that we can be able to get nurses, identify the ones who've been given adequate training to provide post-abortion care, and then in those institutions we evaluate or we measure or we quantify the rate of sepsis, and we can be able to measure all those variables. So if we measure the extent of training and the number of infection cases reported, then we can be able to show the relationship between the dependent and the independent variable. Hypothesis can be stated in many formats. One is if-then statement, 2, directional, 3, non-directional hypothesis, and then we have 4, which is null and alternate hypothesis. We'll take a moment and just describe each of the 4 formats and see what they are all about. So if-then statement. Usually, it tests if there is a relationship between two groups among several groups with respect to any variable or variables. If-then statement can be in form of proposition or actually if-then statement. Let's look at examples for our understanding. 1. Employees who are more healthy would take sick less frequently. You have to state that as if-then, but also say if employees are more healthy, then they'll take sick leave less frequently. That is if-then statements. The other possible way of stating an hypothesis is directional. We use such terms as positive, negative, more than, less than, more likely, and usually that denotes directional hypothesis. The direction of the relationship between the variables is often indicated. An example would be the greater the stress experienced in the job, the lower the job satisfaction of employees. An interesting one, women are more motivated than men, so we can actually tell the direction between stress and job satisfaction, sex, and motivation. The third is non-directional hypothesis, and this postulates a relationship or difference, but offers no indication of direction of the relationship or differences. We just know that there is a relationship between age and job satisfaction. Or there is a difference between the ethnic values of American and African employees. And we can be able to go and test that hypothesis and probably come up with a directional or non-directional hypothesis if need be. So non-directional hypotheses are often formulated either because the relationship or the difference between the variables has never been previously explored, or if you do your literature review and find that there's conflicting findings in previous research and studies on the specific variables. Then we have null and alternative hypothesis. This basically applies in our research analysis, data analysis, and it is in relation to the sample and population mean. The null hypothesis states a definitive exact relationship between two variables. We could say the relationship between two variables is equal to 0, or any difference noted may be due to chance. Is there a relationship between the findings of the small sample, which we drew for population, and the larger population? We do that through confidence intervals, and I know we covered that during the biostatistics lesson. So we have the null and alternative hypothesis, which is usually done in research. The alternative hypothesis, on the other hand, it expresses a relationship between two variables or indicate differences between two groups. That the difference is definite. It is not by chance. Let's remember the conceptual framework we developed in our previous class, and we ask whether we can be able to derive hypotheses based on the mental health status disorders reported among health workers during the COVID-19, and also specifically done in Kenya. So looking at that diagram, are we able to develop some possible hypotheses? You can take a minute and pause this video and analyze that diagram, write down some possible hypotheses, and then we will see some which we came up with. Okay, some possible hypotheses. There's a relationship between age and mental health disorders among front health line workers. Remember, even though this study was done during the COVID-19 pandemic, which still are in, we want to limit the hypothesis without necessarily stating the COVID-19 season, because I want to assume we'll be doing this study in the future. And so it could be in the setting of COVID-19, it may not be in the COVID-19, but yes, we'll be able to test the relationship between age and mental health disorders. So we can get the data among frontline healthcare workers of the age and then the reported mental health disorders. And then another possible hypothesis is that female frontline healthcare workers are more likely to have mental health disorders, or frontline healthcare workers with access to COVID-19 resources are less likely to have mental health disorders, or frontline healthcare workers of government facilities are more prone to mental health disorders. So those are some of the possible hypotheses we could generate based on our conceptual framework. As we said, research is more practice. We learn more through doing it. So I need us to develop hypotheses based on the conceptual framework we drew for our proposal. We will discuss that in class. Here are some of the selected references. Please read further. Always take time to read something extra. I can assure you we don't summarize everything we read. We don't bring you all the materials. We just make basic summary and we hope you read further. Till then, have a beautiful day.